This is another edition of Booze Above Podcast. Welcome back. CIY's here with my daughter, Akia. Akia, what's going on?
What's up, Dad? Today we have a very special guest. I'm going to kick it to him, actually, to let him tell you a little bit about himself and what he's been doing in the cannabis world.
Well, thank you for having me, both of you, Boozer Podcast, Akia, Dad. My name is Jarrod. Thank you so much for having me. So my name is Jarrod Scott. I'm with the Higher Cloud, New Jersey. So what we are is a Monmouth County established floating cannabis club. It's more of a, if you know one, tell a friend sort of idea. We advertise, but we tend to float, and, you know, we created cannabis on the Jersey Shore. We were the first ones to do parties out here. And, you know, we met through one of our vendors who has been with us for over a year now. We've been doing business together, and, you know, that's just a show to our, you know, to our work ethic, how we want to work. We want to build a community, and that's exactly what we've done. We started out to have less than 6 degrees of separation, you know, between everybody in the room, between all the vendors, and, you know, everybody being able to help each other in this, and I keep using this word, community. So that's us. We are the Higher Cloud, New Jersey.
How long have you been doing this, Jarrod?
This October was our year. So our first party was unnamed, and then that's a lie. September was our first party. And then we did a Thanksgiving party. So just coming up on a year and a half.
Okay.
No.
All right. And how many members would you say usually attend one of your community gatherings?
I say we could average around 60 people, you know, by event. We do our events every 6 weeks just to keep it fresh, and to, you know, just allow us to be able to float source locations and things like that. And, you know, to allow to have more time to, you know, source our vendors and make sure everything's copacetic with them. And, you know, the same thing with our guests that come through. We want to make sure everything's on the up and up with them. So, I mean, with all that process and it being every 6-week party, I'd say about 60, 65 people average. I mean, we've had blowout parties where there were, you know, 300 people there. And there have been down days, of course, when there were 15, but, you know.
Okay. You got to take the ups with the downs. I mean, it's all inclusive, right, kid?
Right. I guess, so my question, do you find that, I know cannabis unites us all, right? And it would unite a lot of your community in what you're doing with Higher Cloud, New Jersey, but do you find that there are any other, like, certain groups of people or common identifiers that you're finding? Like, is this a place where Black people in the cannabis world are meeting, or is it kind of just like everybody, we're just all here to just enjoy cannabis?
Well, what our goal was when we started out is we wanted to be, I mean, this is run by my wife and myself, you know, we're both people of color, we're both mixed. So, I mean, what our intention was to have this as female and as colored as possible, right? So when we started sourcing vendors, when we started getting things in line for who we wanted to work with, our initial partners were a man and woman of color as well. You know, so finding Black people in the space is, especially Black females in the space, is a huge thing for us. And, you know, you attract your own crowd. So that being said, I think we have 3 female vendors on constant staff, and they're all women of color.
Wow.
So, I mean, they have their people that are coming out. So within them, that, you know, they're reaching out to their communities and their female vendors of color, and, you know, and it's just, it has created a wonderful, you know, I'm just going to say a wonderful color network, you know, where we are. But aside from that, I mean, we have live entertainment. So we have live music at every event. And that is another community that we really wanted to be in touch with, because we are Monmouth County. We are, you know, we operate largely at Asbury Park. And that is the arts, you know what I mean, down here. So musicians, and, I mean, people of color and artisans and people of focus and drive too.
Okay. Well, aside from Higher Cloud, Jarrod, how long have you been having a relationship with cannabis?
You know, I started in college. little later on in life, because I'm still an entertainer, but smoking was the farthest thing from my mind. So I started
Right.
a little bit later in life, and I'm glad I did. I always say that I'm glad I started later in life.
Why'd you say that?
Right.
I think if you approach it as when kids get into it the same way they get into smoking or drinking or any other, I'm air quoting as hard as I possibly can, vice, you know what I mean? You use it for the wrong reason and you can abuse it. But if you approach it for what it is, like an ancient medicine that you can also have fun with, that's a brilliant way to approach it. So
Right.
when I came into it as a 20-something-year-old, or it's a sophomore year, as a 20-something-year-old, I had more grasp of whatever semi-grasp I had of myself, and what I thought I knew, but it was a lot more than a 15, 16-year-old. However, some people can possibly start smoking at. So I'm just glad I had a better grasp of myself before.
I agree. I agree with you in the sense of what I'm hearing is that you would just like a person you would like there to be a certain maturity level, a certain respect for the plant itself, rather than just the feeling that it may bring at times, right? So when you use it as only a coping mechanism for any and everything, it can be misused or abused. So I definitely agree with you there. You, like you're saying, have a knowledge of yourself at a later point in your life, were able to respect and enjoy the plant to the fullest of its effects.
Yeah,
you said it better than I did.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you too, Dad. Like, just about the respect piece, because I think that was major for me. And like we talked about in the first episode, when we talked about like me kind of coming to you about it, it was all about respect.
Right.
Like I could see your passion for this plant. And as Jarrod put it, this ancient medicine that you can have fun with. I could see that it was bigger than just something you smoke to be cool or smoke to just to do it. Like it always had seemed bigger to me than that. So when I approached it, I knew that I had to come with a certain level of respect, not only for the plant, but for the people who kind of like kick down doors for us to be able to have
Right.
access to the plant.
Yeah, because the culture is so much different now than when I came up. And Jarrod, I'm free with my age, so I'm 46. Just to give you a range of where I am in life.
All right, just turned 39.
Okay, not a problem. Congratulations,
Thank you.
But I've had a relationship with cannabis for well over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I came into it younger, but I definitely understand what you mean, because even in certain of my circles and crowds, there definitely was a lack of respect for the plant itself. But that's what, that's the discipline of a person. And so, that comes with education. So there was a lot of information and education lacking about said plant at the time. Mm-hmm. Hopefully we can spread, especially with communities like Higher Cloud, right? And I learned to appreciate all that it has to offer as well, because it's a communal plant. So, when we come together with it instead of dividing with it, I'm pretty sure we'll be in a much better space.
Right.
Mm-hmm. What was really refreshing, Akia, is when you were like, how you approached your dad about it. You approached it with respect. That means he he showed reverence. You don't approach something that somebody else showed no reverence for. You know what I mean? That's refreshing. I have friends that are, dear friends that take their in all fairness, I'm mixed too, so I'm just gonna speak out in all fairness. White as a piece of paper. And they'll take their kids to the dispensary, and she knows that daddy's going to get his medicine. They go in the dispensary. You know what I mean? It's nice that it's becoming normalized. In spaces where you would expect it to become a lot more normalized, but he can take little Stacy into the dispensary, and it's just like walking into CVS for her. Do you know what I mean? That is a beautiful thing.
That definitely, I appreciate that, because I appreciated her coming to me. I didn't give my mother the same courtesy, like I said, because where we were, and also my parents' attitude towards the plant was much different than what my child saw her parents' attitude towards the plant. So I was happy that she was comfortable enough to come to me so that we could, like you said, so I can inform, warn, and guide in a way that was proper, I feel, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's like crazy because like sometimes I low-key get clowned for the amount of respect I have for weed, but like recently just had an encounter where I was in a cypher and I was the person who wrote, and they were like, "You ain't got no grabba, no Fonto, no nothing in this." I'm like, "No, I just like my weed." Like, it's
Right.
nothing against people who do consume tobacco products. That's for you. But he was like, "Oh, you're organic," and I'm like, "Well, yeah." And then I kind of became like the butt of the joke. Like I was like the dweeb of the group. But I'm like, I like to know, I like to taste my weed to taste like, oh, like this kush tastes different than this gelato, and that tastes different than purple Urkel. Like I guess that's how I get to know my weed. I use my senses. So it's like crazy because like I genuinely love the plant, and I love how, depending on what environment it grew in, who grew it, where is it coming from? Cali? Is it from?
Talk.
Like where is it coming from? It could change how this plant affects me, but also like how I interact with it, the taste, the smell, the texture, like, and a lot of people my age don't have that same, like, they like weed is weed. And I'm like, no, this is not just weed. This is not just cannabis. Like, this is a specific type, please. And I like nerd out about certain things where I'm like, nah, because when I look this up on Leafly, it has this terpene, which is something that podcasting Boozer Bud has got me into. And I know my terpenes that like put me in a really good place. So before I buy weed now, like I'm like, okay, I'm looking for a weed that has this kind of terpene. Like I used to look for like simply just look for like THC levels, because everybody talked about like the more THC, the higher you got. And I realized like sometimes being fried out of your mind is not fun. Like it's certain terpenes that I want. And like it's certain kinds of weed that I know like me and this weed go together like peanut butter and jelly. Like it's just what it is with that terpene. So I think that, I guess in a way, having that foundation and having a parent to kind of talk me through, and that could tell me like anecdotal or stories about what weed was like before we get to this point where people have had the chance to create hybrids and all these other kinds of weed. Like what now we have access to that in New Jersey. Like we didn't always have like readily available access to all these different strains and stuff like that. So like hearing that, I guess I kind of had like a springboard to like, okay, that was the basis. My foundation started off really, really strong, started off with deep respect and deep levels of knowledge. So now anything I do on my own is just like adding to an already great like foundation. So it's like now my interest in the plant is like way deeper than I even saw it becoming when I first started smoking.
Right.
And you know what? People like you are the only reason you know about people like, you know what I mean? Only people like you are the only reason people like you now know about terpenes. You know what I mean? You're
Right.
geeking out about feeling whatever kind of way, like that passion. That's what keeps this community what it is. You know what I mean? That's why we're still able to smoke 4th generation sour diesel still, because somebody's still growing that clipping. Do you know what I mean? Like that.
Right.
That's the kind of passion that and you know that we all still carry. That's why we're talking about this on a podcast.
Right. So being of a certain age and seeing the climate and the culture of how it is right now with the legalization and everything, how are you feeling about the direction in which the business is moving?
I can speak frankly. Anytime man puts his hand on anything, it becomes spoiled. So the more hands that touch anything to regulate or anything like that, it just ends up becoming money driven and going into the wrong hands. I mean,
That's right.
I'm sure we can each, share off air anecdotes or off recording anecdotes of friends of ours who have, been guaranteed licenses and monies that have been laid, and then you saw who got the spot you were supposed to get. So like we've seen enough of this happen already. So I just keep your hands off. Leave it to the medical. I fully appreciate that end, but let the recreational. Right. I say the
recreational. Right.
And that's tough. That's tough to say now that you know there's such a thriving gray market. that we're able to say, stay away. But yeah, I would say I don't care for the non-medicinal legalization, at least here.
And to be honest, that's been like a common theme we've been seeing, like among people that we're talking about, people who are in the industry, just looking at the industry from the outside in, is just like this idea that like on the adult use or the recreational side, it is not what they're painting it to be. It's not even what they promise. Like it's a lot to it.
You know, it is. It's upsetting, and it was, I think, to be expected in a state where a liquor license at in a standing building costs $125,000. Do you know what I mean? Like, to take over a bar, you got to purchase a liquor license for $125,000. Like that's kind of where we're at. So we knew that going in. We're all just like, okay, here we go.
Right.
It's
Yeah, I just wanted to hear your opinion on, it's good to hear such candor because, a lot of people will sugarcoat a lot of things at times. And, to get it real, this is how we make effective change. So
right.
I also feel like you, but, also feel that it was definitely a need to decriminalize it, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Please continue.
So the
Yes.
decriminalization part, and I don't want people to get confused, decriminalization and legalization, right?
Right.
Because decriminalization still leaves a free range for you doing what you want to do with it, as long as there's no criminal activity attached to it.
Yes.
You're free to do what you want to do with it. But legalization creates tariffs and, like you're saying, taxes and a lot of regulations and governing, which, like you say, when human interaction is involved, it's error, right?
Yeah. And I wish I could say it was from a selfish point of view or from a business standpoint, but like we all help each other. And the point of this community is, our vendors help each other when they don't have, if
that's right.
So, it's not even from a business standpoint. It's just from like, I don't see positive things coming from the legalization.
I also don't see how is this money being funneled back to its own community, meaning the cannabis's own community, and to those that have been adversely affected for many, many years. Of this, right?
Yeah, this podcast was only scheduled for an hour.
You're always welcome to come back so we can expound. But
well, listen,
that's just a question to throw out there. You don't have to elaborate. It's just a question to ponder.
Yeah, no, I can sprinkle that out. I mean, if you follow the initiatives that were set out, there should be no problem the money returning to where it needs to go. And exactly. I think that's a very nice way to put a bow on it until we can return on this a little more deeply.
So I guess this is a great segue, right, to kind of talk about what you do, right? Mm-hmm. So you already kind of spoke about, okay, when you throw these events, you were looking to partner with women of color or people of color, and especially the intersection of the two, women of color. Talk to us a little bit for our audience that may not understand or may not know, why are those specific initiatives for Higher Cloud for you? Why did you choose to place that emphasis when you started it?
For lack of a better place to start is where else. I think that wasn't even a thought. Like that was going to be our jump off, was to women and people of color have just consistently been underserved just historically. So I mean, us both being people of color, that was just a major thought from the jump.
I think too, with us starting the podcast, like my dad's favorite phrase is like, everybody might not be for cannabis, but cannabis is for everyone. And thing that we talk about too is just like education being a big piece of like how people of color, specifically like our Black people, especially our Black people from poor neighborhoods, low income neighborhoods, and then our Black women, like a lot of us don't have education about the true history behind cannabis to even understand that it is an ancient medicine. A lot of us are going based off of what we see on the TV or what we read, or, you know, some of the scare stories that they like to prop up and not really prop up the research or the positive anecdotes. So I think too, like a big part, I resonate with that. And I think a big part of what we started is like, yeah, where else would we be? Like,
Yeah.
you know, like this is just cannabis culture is deeply connected to Black culture in America. So it just goes
Yeah.
together.
And I think, you know, it being such a connecting and a connecting and healing plant, and there's nothing stronger on this earth than a woman. And I can say that again. So the amount of female-owned businesses that we have, like the vendors, and most are, you know, making their own, pressing their own, sourcing their own, everything's, you know, from the ground up for a lot of these people. And 97% are on the way to legalization. You know what I mean? As vendors themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, and them being able to then pass on that education, you know, where it may not have lived before, they messed around and backdoor themselves into a fantastic community. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have some, not necessarily women I'm speaking on, but just, you know, some people in this industry have backdoored themselves into a wholesome community. Do you know what I mean? Like they just came in to pitch some green and they messed around and made like some really good friends.
Yeah.
I like to tell, you know, my daughter or anyone for that matter, that things have a way of writing themselves. And I know it may seem long to some because it may be their whole life cycle, but like here, as you know where I'm about to go with this, in the cosmos of time, our life cycles are merely grains of sand on a beach, man. So cannabis and culture from its inception has gone hand in hand. And so it's only right that we get back to that.
Right. I'm not gonna lie. I just came back from DC, and man, they're pretty close to bridging that cannabis and culture, because that is my happy place. Like anywhere you go, everything's cannabis friendly for the most part.
Yeah, kid, that's crazy because we went throughout all the Black Lives Matter movement, right? And it was already on that wave, but I still had Jersey mentality. So I'm ducking behind trees, rolling up, people looking at me like I'm crazy.
Right.
I'm seeing people walk down the street with the bike police and they smoking. I said, oh man, yeah, this is really cannabis friendly.
Yeah, and I went to the club, and I had just copped from, it was this place called Legacy DC. And Legacy DC, they sell digital art, and in exchange for their digital art, you get a free gift of cannabis. And so with my free gift, I walked to the club and I'm like, oh my gosh, I have this cannabis in my pocketbook. Are these people about to take my nice gift?
Right.
and I get there and I was like, you know what? If they say they're going to take it, I'm just going to walk away. Like, I'm just going to leave, because there's no way you're taking this or throwing it out or anything else. And so when I opened up my bag, I really thought he was going to take it. He was like, okay, fine, go in. I was like, oh, it is a completely different atmosphere. I love it.
Now, is DC any closer than us to the indoor consumption? Because I know that's popping up here, but do they have any accommodations for indoor consumption in DC?
So there are like a lot of like lounges and stuff like that I think were already equipped for like hookah and stuff, that I think it was easy for them to just kind of like bridge over. I don't know about like legality type of things. But it was easy for them to kind of just, because people smoking there anyway.
I know, like in Jersey, we can't sell and smoke on the same, like, you know, legally, right? So this is why you can't really have like a cannabis bar right now, right?
Right.
Because you can't sell and smoke at the same spot, right? And
this is whispers I heard from security at our last event that was changing.
It probably is, which means they're probably not coming on it right now, but it hasn't been written. Like the bill hasn't passed yet.
Wonderful. Yeah. I hadn't heard anything about that. And that's another scary, not scary precedent, but again, with the legalization, and once you legalize it, it's now, this is going to be a long non-word, criminalizable. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
but so like you have a lounge, and you smoke too much to anybody's liking, you know what I mean? There's now consequences to that, where as before, with it just being decriminalized, that didn't exist.
So here's where it goes. Here's where, for instance, like you could have a club, like you're saying, and we can be in there all day. The building is cannabis friendly. We could puff away. Like it could be treats up there, baskets of. You can come grab some, and if you would like, leave a donation, any of that, right? But you cannot sell marijuana and smoke marijuana on the same premise.
Yeah. And I think too, like, for me, at least, DC is definitely my happy place, but I also realize there are some age barriers. Like a lot of people cause a lot more ruckus. I guess a lot of older men, I guess in my experience, cause more ruckus, even in a cannabis friendly zone, because I was with a group of 20-year-old women that didn't ask any man for cannabis. We came with our own cannabis and rolled up by ourselves. And like, so sometimes you'll get people that are like literally somebody's like, I know you ain't smoking that stuff. I'm like, are you serious, bruh? Like,
yeah.
Like,
yeah, the ignorant. Yeah. Well, it's going to take a while to bridge that gap.
That's
and that just comes with time. That just comes with time. So we looking at what has been almost 2 years of legalization in Jersey, a little over a year. Right. And so let's get this a generation. Let's get this 20 years, and it'll be almost super normalized, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We're just hoping that we iron out all
the kinks and stuff by then.
Rinks and tinkles elsewhere. Yeah. But as far as the attitude towards it'll be just like alcohol.
Because I feel like personally, like that, the reason why I bring that up is it has to be it's a twofold approach, right? If we're going to do this, quote unquote, because what happens is, let's say a place is cannabis friendly, but there's not enough legislation, or the legislation has gray areas, or the legislation hasn't been, like you said, in the case of New Jersey, it hasn't been written out explicitly to say you can smoke inside of buildings. What happens is, in those cases, they probably aren't looking because they know this legislation is going to change or is coming, or, whatever. They're probably not looking for people who are allowed.
There's no need, exactly. It's just a waste of time for them. It's a waste of, as they would say, taxpayers' dollars. You're holding up the courts with cases that aren't going to stand the time anyway. So
right, and then where the problem comes in is, let's say dispensary ABC pops up, or I won't even say dispensary because you can't sell. So I'll say smoke cannabis smoke lounge ABC pops up, and they really don't have anything legally to say people can consume. What happens is the person who has a negative stigma, or they just woke up on the wrong side of the bed on this particular day, maybe they need to smoke, they decide to be a whistleblower and say like, hey, they're out here consuming cannabis. Everyone else in the neighborhood was fine with it. Nobody's really looking to kind of crack down on people who are allowing people to consume cannabis, but because this person is upset or has this stigma in their mind, instead of just saying they're minding their business, let me mind my own, they decide to start calling law enforcement. And that's where it kind of gets tricky, because then you get into like the politics of who's and who's allowed to get away with what, and how much money do you need to have to get out of that situation, and this and the third. Like, it gets into a whole other thing. So I hope too, as we make progress, because now we're already on the other side of legalization. So as we make progress with legislation, one of my biggest things, going back to the initial point we started with, is like education. Because even if you're one of the people that's not for cannabis is for everyone. So Like, I think that we need to allow more room in our lives, in our minds, in our education for like what cannabis consumption truly means. Like, you know, like I think there's still to
Well,
even see
when we come from that's why it's our duties to show the world that diversification is everywhere, and so the cannabis community is made up of each and every type of person.
Maybe
So,
what if you say the diverse applications of cannabis?
right.
You know what I
there you
mean? Because
go.
that this blew my mind. I'd completely just digress into something else. Our second event, I think, this was over a year ago. We had an MMP patient with her caregiver. This woman, I think, was 87, 88 years old, on a walker. She won our raffle. Like, she won a quarter. Like, it was a brilliant thing. Like, but she was there with her caregiver, you know what I mean? Like, at a community event, just because it was that welcoming community. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it
The
was,
acceptance, right?
and
You don't like
she,
to be judged.
right, and she happened to be a smoker, but you know, her caregiver was an MMP patient who liked a topical rub. You know, so we had somebody for that. You know what I mean? Or somebody who couldn't use a topical because they were allergic to blank. Well, we had someone who does organic vegan. You know what I mean? Or somebody who needs who does consume, or you name it. You know, we offered it, and this is not a plug again, but this is just the multiple applications of, like, and it's sadly enough, I think, like anything else, any sort of new medicine or any sort of new treatment, it takes anybody who's so vehemently against it. It takes either them having no other choice but then to try a last ditch effort. Do you know what I mean? Like, people have been there. And then, or, you know, sadly enough, anything for Uncle so-and-so. Do you know what I mean?
Well, it's also hard. It's also hard for a lot of those people would be like that regardless, right? And because one thing about information and education is, once understanding is had, respect should be there. So any disrespect towards it after that is a biased or personal opinion in the matter.
Yeah.
Right. So whereas you're just using something in which you're adverse to base my whole character on and say you don't like me. Like, I don't like that weed smoking CI. Like,
and you know what's
that's not
crazy?
the only thing I am.
People go pick up and this is no offense, I've had to have back surgery and I've had to be on painkillers and stuff too, obviously, but people would much sooner go and fill up a prescription for Vicodin, do you know what I mean? Like, which is then taking that, you know what I mean, then possibly try something non-narcotic. And that, to me, like, as soon as I could cough again.
If I show facts on both of those two narcotics that we're talking about, I guarantee you that without any headings up there, most would pick marijuana without knowing what it is.
Yeah,
now,
you just
the moment I
the
put
facts
that,
without the name.
yes, I just put I just put the properties of the medicine. And so whatever you're ailing, I'm putting with this medicine, the properties it's going to give to you when taken properly, and it's in a medicinal form. And then I'm going to put the adverse effects of it too. And I'm going to put yours, whatever you've been prescribed. And I'm going to take off the heading. And I'm going to ask you, which one would you take?
Right. And that little white fold-out packet that comes in that box that you get from the pharmacy. You know, when they say, would you like to speak to a pharmacist? And it's that big old fold-out sheet.
It'd be like the blind test back in the day.
It's crazy, yeah, because you were definitely reminding me of the Prego versus Ragu commercial when they had them people. The blind test in the grocery store, and they all chose, like, I forgot who it was, whoever the commercial was. People conveniently chose.
They all chose Prego over Ragu.
But it's crazy we bring up like the different uses, because even as someone who I've been consuming cannabis for not quite 10 years yet, but
About
sometimes,
8,
yeah,
right?
about 8 years. I've mainly been
8,
a smoker.
9.
I realized for me, the reason why I think I like smoking is because I'm a tactile person. Um, so like I like to handwrite my notes still. Even on my iPad, I use a Apple Pencil. Like I don't want to
Well,
just
the apple sure don't fall far from the tree. That's about the same time.
yeah, I like to create with like I growing up, I like to sew and crochet, like things that you got to use your hands for.
Mhm.
And so I realized I didn't know that about myself. And then I went to Brown Box, where she put me on to this pain cream that they have. I'm looking at the box now. It's 500
The
milligrams of
fair?
Big
pain.
shout, Brown
Yup,
Box.
fair, right? Yeah, Farrah. She
Yeah.
put me on pain cream. And at first I was like hesitant because I'm like, it's not gonna work. I'll just smoke some weed. Then I was like you're on the Boozer Bud podcast. Like, you gotta be open to
You
all
got to
forms.
try,
Just
right?
try it once.
Right.
And I tried it, and I actually I didn't smoke weed to make sure that my experiment was controlled. So I didn't smoke anything. I just tried the pain cream by itself. I tried it for both, like just regular back pain, like woke up just like, oh, my back hurts, and then like also for cramps. And like I actually felt better. I actually felt a difference. Like, where usually I might be sitting with a heating pad stuck on the couch, the pain cream allowed for me to just put it right on the spot where it was hurting, and I could keep pushing throughout my day, and it applied just like a lotion. I was like, wow, like even with me having consumed cannabis for a long time, even with me being in this field where I'm imparting knowledge on other people, I still find room to explore. I still find room to grow in my cannabis knowledge. And so now I'm like investigating, like, like they don't tell you when you take those narcotics, that Vicodin, Percocets, whatever you name it, like it's really not you. It doesn't lessen the pain. It just numbs you out completely so that you don't feel anything.
Mhm.
It just turns off your pain receptors.
Right, the receptors, right?
Whereas like,
Mhm.
whereas like, when I used the CBD cream, it really just actually targeted where I was feeling pain. I didn't just like not have sensation anywhere else or not feel anything else. I really just was able to actually treat the pain. So it made me want to investigate. And shout out to Farrah again, like, what is exactly happening when CBD comes in contact with the skin, and how does that translate to the endocannabinoid system? And so,
Yeah,
like,
because the skin is an organ, and
right,
because the skin is an organ, once it ingests through topical, things become local. Then, right? It doesn't have to enter through the central nervous system in order for you to get the effects of it in any type of way.
right. And it's like I got the pain relief. Like, I thought that was pretty cool, and something that I wanted to share on the podcast in general is I got the pain relief. And for people who don't like, being high, like that is a great way to use those properties without
My
the
father-in-law was against getting high, and was getting tired of um, traditional medicines and traditional therapeutic practices to treat a ailing leg, you'll call it, right? And he was given a topical cream to put on his knee, and sure enough, he loved it.
high key been like on my Erica Badu type timing. And I found this thing. I found this thing called the Healing Web. And it's basically
What?
like, it's called the Healing Web. And it's basically like the how to treat different things using holistic medicine. And so like it's actually kind of confusing when you look at it, but it's like color coded, and it had cannabis on there, and I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. And it even breaks down. It says CBD, THC, and hemp seed, and it says like literally those words, and everything that's on the green path, um on the Healing Web, can be treated with cannabis in some way. And then it also connects it with other things. So it's crazy because I think it was episode 3, we talked about apple cider vinegar. Cannabis and apple cider vinegar are all connected with healing the body from any sort of like physical like pain that you're going to feel, like you said, an ailing leg or whatever else. And then it's also connected to like balancing
Well, what they say, kid, what they say, they always say that anything imagined can be real, for everything that is imagined came from what had to be real, right? So when you hear about elixirs, or you hear about old sorcery, or you hear about alchemists and turning this into that, it's a lot of knowledge that we lost, and it's because things were outlawed in certain cultures here. People didn't know how to use things here, plants, and the reason how it got planted, or the reason why it got used, got lost in the migration of the people. Cannabis being one of those, you know. And then when we know our history, right? And we just know the history of man, period, and his nomadic travels. For this plant to make it to all 7 continents.
Right.
That's because man made sure he kept it sacred. He took it everywhere with him.
Yeah, and like I'm looking at this healing web too, and like it deeply connects to it, kind of like you said, cannabis is for everyone, because unfortunately, you know, we do have illnesses in this lifetime, and one of the things that is deeply connected to and what it can heal, the path when you follow the healing web, it points back to cancer. And so that's something that transcends age, race. Like, unfortunately,
well, isn't that amazing that one industry would say, don't smoke cannabis, smoke this, knowing that their product causes cancer?
Right.
You don't find that ironic?
Right. That's a whole other episode.
Yeah. We'll be back for that one.
Because what we're talking about is the connection between all life forms.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so when we start separating and forgetting that that's plant life we talking about, you just talked about fungal life, we got bacterial life, right? We got viral life, right? Some of those things are parasitic on us. Some of those things are symbiotic in our relationship. This is why we have an endocannabinoid system. That's a symbiosis going on right there.
And all of these, like, big shout out to my wife, by the way, because she gives me up on these things, the cannabis over there. You know, like these trees are out here, the complementary plants and stuff. These things are out here talking to each other. You know what I mean? Like, to think that you don't have a part in any of that.
See, people, you know? See, someone would say you're sounding weird right now, but I understand you fully.
Yeah, I mean,
right, because they have a communication. When we think of talk, all we think of is lips movement and words, vibrations of vocal cords. But they have a language amongst themselves. Yes, they're talking to each other.
Yeah, root systems share water systems, and, you know, get some drink a little more when a little thirsty. You know, there's complementary plants that work well with each other and stuff, and that's known. You know, like this is science. And again, big shout out my wife.
That's fact.
That's right.
Actually, you know, the smell of fresh cut grass, that is actually a distress signal from the grass. I don't know who it's signaling, but I guess other grasslands. But it's actually like the grass is crying, low key.
That's sadly hilarious.
It's giving off pheromones.
I think I'm glad we got to talk about with the applications of it and the intersections of it with the you know, with the other natural medicines, we'll call them. And I mean, I read something a couple of years ago that just completely not changed my mind, but just really just Windexed the whole, you know, thought pain on everything. It was like, you know, it's okay to enjoy your medicine. And that was just like strangely like light bulb, like, well, shit. Right.
But like people sleep on, like, I guess there's been a stomach bug going around. I recently that was news to me. Didn't find out until I was sick myself. And
you breaking it to me right now.
and at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to the store and I'm gonna get this, that, and the third. And then I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. Instead, I mean, I still went to the store, but I went to the produce section instead, and I looked up like fruits that are known to heal the gut, the stomach. And so, you know, stuff that came up was like kiwis, bananas, mangoes, which sparked my interest because on a couple of episodes, I think the episode with Grandpa Loopy, like we talked about mycering and how mycering connects with not only just cannabis, or it's connected to not only cannabis, but it's connected to other fruits and vegetables that we find, because it's a terpene. It's a characteristic. I was just
gonna say, go back to the terpenes.
Yeah. And so mangoes is one of the plants, the other plants besides cannabis that has mycelium. And so I was like, okay, that should help me with the pain, because I was physically in pain. And then I also had this new obsession with dragon fruit. So I went and found all of these fruits and I blended them up in a smoothie, and I just stuck to just like a fruit. I did this fruit smoothie and then a regular green toss salad for 2 days straight. And because before I couldn't eat like even chicken and rice, that was too much for my stomach. Like I couldn't do it. And so after I did those 2 days of just leafy greens and my fruit smoothie to heal my stomach, of course, mixed with cannabis, I think I might have missed one day of me being sick of smoking. I just couldn't get out of bed. But that combination of things, I was better in the 2 days than I would have been had I just been like, oh, I'm just going to go get Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, everything you stand supports so much, right? So you do less work to your digestive system because you've broken it down into a smoothie, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you're intaking carbs, but because you've already broken down fast carbs, they're even faster. So you don't have the slow carbs of rice. You don't have heavy meat on you with chicken.
Right. Yeah. And
honestly, the whole system of nice reset. Yeah.
That's the best that like I felt. And I was like, let me just keep up with my smoothies now. Like now that I'm not sick, let me continue to keep up with my smoothies, because like it's even waking up in the morning felt easier. I'm not a morning person. My dad knows that. Anything before 10 a.m. is just absolutely not feasible for me. But I found that when I had to wake up at those times, I wasn't.
You need something, as long as you keep your mucus levels decreased, you're pretty good, right? Because that's what gets us sick ultimately. So even when we look at like cancer, if people thought of cancer as nothing but mucus that builds up in one spot until it hardens like a big inside booger.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's just on organs. It's in vital places because you have blockage there. The same way you have blockage in your nose. You get a booger. If you get too blocked, you see kids and they can stop breathing. Our bodies just regulate from that. So we got cilia in there or hair follicles to stop things of that nature from happening. So when boogers get too heavy in your nose, they fall out. They break off the hair or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's a brilliant
body
system.
That can't happen if you can't push it out through your digestive tract. Eventually, that blockage. This is the things. All these things that I'm telling you is the systems and the interconnectivity that. This is all the things that's going to block you up. Once you got an understanding on all this and incorporate cannabis like we talking about, because I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying if you are going to medicate, think about self-medicating with the cannabis plant.
Yeah, and with the intention, because like I had to, one of the things is I realized with herbal medicine, holistic health, self-medication, you have to set the intention so that you understand what it is you're even doing. So like when I smoke, because ultimately I'm going to self-diagnose myself with high functioning anxiety. So now on the outside, I look like, oh, she's just the overachiever. She has a great work ethic. She works really hard. You know, she's just a go-getter. But on the inside, it feels like you're not doing enough, do more. Or it feels like my thoughts are scrambled all over the place. Like the best way I can describe it is imagine you're in an office and everybody's running around and there's papers flying. That's how sometimes my head feels. So when I smoke cannabis,
well, I think we gotta break. Not to cut you off, Kid. As I listen to you, I think we gotta break with the generalized view of what medicine should do or what it is. right? Because I think when people hear the word medicine, I think we have a respect for the word to know that when we say we self-medicate, it's an ongoing process, right?
It's
And
a journey.
it's
Yeah.
not something, it's not a Band-Aid you put on a cut at the moment. And so I'm not telling you, like, I'm not advocating that in times of severe pain, you can smoke a blunt and it's
Right.
going to go away.
Right.
Right? That's not what I'm saying here.
But in times of severe pain, you can smoke a blunt and you can reflect on how you got there, and
right.
you can try to come up with some solutions as to how to get out of this situation or how not to have it happen again.
Right. From a mental aspect, right?
Yeah.
I was talking about more from a physical perspective, right? I'm not telling you if you fall down, break your leg, you spark up a blunt, you're gonna be good. That's not what I speak of when I say medicine as an alternative to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying when you incorporate this into your lifestyle, whether it be dietary, whether it be cosmetically, right? In opposition to some of the things you may have been traditionally doing. So maybe your shampoo, you've been using things with a lot of fragrance or something. Maybe you want to use a hemp-based shampoo and figure out what's going on. You know, if you bent on smoking, maybe instead of tobacco cigarettes, you pick up marijuana cigarettes. Now it's legal. It's no more stigma for you to say, well, it's illegal, that's why I don't smoke it. Because you were confusing ethics and legality, or morals and legality. But now that's over with. So, okay, alternative now. Smoke marijuana instead of, I just need a cigarette to calm down. I smoke this joint. Smoke this marijuana cigarette instead of that tobacco. And watch you see a lot of things go down from that. So anxiety, depression, high blood pressure, things start to come down when we normalize that other coping mechanisms aren't being utilized. Instead, cannabis in some form or fashion is being incorporated.
This has definitely been a great conversation.
Yeah, because I would like to specialize our talk a little bit more sometime and get a little bit more into his entertainment and things of that nature, get a little bit more informational with him and educational and historical. And so I definitely would like to have him back on for part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. You know, keep this a long-lasting relationship.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. I mean, my wife and I just finished Once on This Island production at the Cannabis Theater. It was the first all Black production that's ever been there. So, I mean, it was yeah, it's a show. I mean, it's a show that represents colorism and, you know, racism and all that stuff. Like, and we just did it. We did it right. We cast it right. It was just a beautiful thing out there. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about, a lot of people to talk to, you know what I mean? That are listening to Boozer Bud podcast and want to be, you know what I'm saying? Like entertainment angle talking more, that want to be doing theater, you know what I mean? That want to be singing, that want to be doing anything other than they're doing right now, that want to be in events, you know what I mean, that want to be talking to one of the vendors that we're friends with, you know what I mean, because they want to bake, and you know what I mean, like just there's so much power to be had in this community that we are so lucky to be able to create, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, definitely.
All right, well, plug yourself one more time, Jarrod. Let the people know how they can, you know, get into it.
I'm gonna be real shameless. Coming up this 25th, we have Desiree Spinks and Ryan Gregg providing live entertainment with a select few vendors available for purchase. Also, we are at the Higher Cloud NJ at THC NJ. We're on Instagram. That's really the place you're gonna find us, at the Higher Cloud NJ. Yeah, big shout to all of our people that we're involved with, all of our vendors that have been with us for over a year. That's love and dedication, y'all. We you know, it's a beautiful thing that you guys have created with each other, really, just supporting each other and just being there for each other. Yes, I will be sure to share this with everybody. Big shout out to you guys, Boozer Bud. I met you guys in person. It was a real honor. You know, I like what you guys are doing up there too with, you know, bringing attention to cannabis and your marketing, Akia, up there. So you let me know the next time that's happening.
Most definitely.
Thanks. Yeah. All right, y'all. I thank you again for coming out and supporting us. Be back again. I'm CR signing off. Akia, thanks again to Jarrod Scott and Higher Cloud. Peace.
Peace.
Later.